There's a lot of negative connotations around the word job hopping. So by sharing my own examples, I'm hoping to help others realize that, you create your own career. If your company doesn't offer you any opportunities for career growth, at some point you might realize, what am I doing here? Layoffs, people are not getting promoted. When you feel stuck, just leaving or just quitting isn't always the right solution. Sometimes leaving can be the best decision for your mental health. Other people see it as job hopping, but I see it as really growing my career and going for my own goals.
I want to also talk about toxic work environments.
It will look different for everyone. That's actually not just you're not enjoying your job. This is just like,
Not okay.
Yeah, this is just not okay.
My boss actually received 3 bullying complaints. One from myself included. Sorry if you're watching and you know who you are. And the company decided to keep her because she was the highest performing. What's the biggest objections you get? So when you work with people one-on-one and they say, oh, I can't because of...
Good question. I would say that...
And don't take this advice from me. Jen actually worked at LinkedIn.
I did. I mean, you can go wild with the LinkedIn profile, right? And I would say for job seekers in general, just make sure to...
Burning bridges with ex-employers or as you're exiting a job. Oh, but you don't know what I went through. Jennifer Paine, welcome to the Talent Exchange podcast. It's so great to have you here finally.
Thank you, Daisy. I'm so happy to be here too.
So today we're going to talk about a controversial topic. So you post a lot of quotes on your LinkedIn, which I love, by the way. And one that caught my eye in particular and I wanted to discuss about was, let me read it out. I 5 times my salary by job hopping. So a topic close to my heart. I have some feelings about this, but I'm just curious from your story and your perspective, how did it improve your career path?
Yeah, great question. And I feel like there's a lot of negative connotations around the word job hopping, which is exactly why I post about it, because I'm like, we need to just put this out in the open and make sure that, people can think about what do I want to achieve in my career. And if that is job hopping or, changing jobs, more regular than other people might, like that's fine. So by sharing my own examples, I'm hoping to help others realize that, you create your own career. You create your own career path, right? So in terms of how it has helped me, I would say that when I started working back in the Netherlands, I didn't have a very high paying job. I loved my job. I was a recruiter and it was really, it's kind of like what I'm doing right now, like helping others land jobs and figure out what they want to do. It was really nice, but it wasn't a very high paying job. I wasn't in a very high paying environment. And that was fine because I really loved my job. But I still cared about salary. And I was like, I still want to be able to do the things that I want to do every day. So whenever I felt like, okay, I'm not really reaching anything here, I was like, okay, let me just try and see if I can get a higher salary somewhere. Like I have to say that at the start of my career, my motives or like my maybe career goals weren't as clear as they are now. I definitely learned a lot from that as well. So on the one hand, changing jobs that way helped me increase my salary, and that grew exponentially when I moved into tech. I think most people know, but for the people who don't, that, salaries in tech are quite good.
Yeah.
So if you want to, I guess, increase your salary or have a better, have some more to spend or save or whatever you want to do with your money, like working in tech can be quite good for you.
Yeah.
But besides that, I feel like it also really helped me, I guess, move forward with the jobs that I really was aiming for. So what happens a lot right now in companies is, layoffs, less career opportunity, people are not getting promoted. And you might have been in the same job for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and not making any sort of, I guess, growth staying stagnant. Exactly. And if your company doesn't offer you any opportunities for career growth, then at some point you might realize, what am I doing here? Like I kind of feel stuck. And I've been in those situations. And you have to think for yourself, right? If your
Mm.
company isn't helping you, if your manager isn't helping you move forward, get promoted, and so on, then sometimes changing jobs can be the best way to go.
Yeah, you have to take matters in your own hands
That's it,
sometimes.
really. That's it, really. And I have to say, I mentioned the word job hopping. You mentioned it because I obviously wrote about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it has a negative connotation, but always say it's not about just job hopping for the sake of job hopping.
Mm.
It's not to just leave your job when you're, unhappy, or when you feel stuck. Just leaving or just quitting isn't always the right solution.
Mm.
So I made sure to at least always have a clear plan. Like, what am I really working towards? What is the job that I'm aiming for? What better title can I get? Um, is there a salary and a salary increase potentially? Is there a very clear career path in the company that I'm joining? So I'm always thinking about, like, how can my next move help me out? So
Yeah.
other people see it as job hopping, but I see it as really growing my career and going for my own goals.
Did you ever get judged when you applied for positions? Did the recruiters or hiring managers ever like question your?
No, but outsiders have. So posting it on LinkedIn, I definitely got some hate.
Mm.
I would say, again, because I had a very clear path, a very clear goal of why I'm switching jobs or changing jobs. Um, that helps, right? So if you are in a conversation with a recruiter or a hiring manager, of course they're going to ask you the question, why are you leaving your job? Or, oh, you've only been working there for, 9 months now.
Mm.
Why are you looking for a change? And that's why I mentioned, don't just job hop or change for the sake of changing. But
Yeah.
if you have a very clear path or clear idea of why you're changing, that's your motivation.
Yeah. And it can also be seen as an act of self-care, right? To leave a toxic environment, for example, or a toxic boss, for example.
100%, 100%. And that was for me, at least personally, one of the reasons why, yeah, sometimes I quit jobs without having something else lined up, right? Because yeah, a toxic boss can really negatively impact you. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of just leaving for the sake of leaving, because, especially if you don't have like some savings that you can sort of fall back to, like, it can be very tricky to
Mm.
not have a job or to not be employed. But in some cases, if you are in a fortunate situation where um, the money isn't like the main reason why you're leaving, or you might have some savings, to use while you're unemployed. Sometimes leaving can be the best decision for your mental health. The self-love and the self-care might weigh much more than the money that you're earning in your toxic job.
Yeah, and I agree with your statement. I think it's also, just on a personal note, helped me with my career progression.
Yeah.
I think I was in a similar situation to you at the beginning of my journey in the Netherlands, where the salary was just way lower than I expected for the cost of living in particular.
Yeah.
So
Great
that's really
point.
tough, especially if you enjoy the workplace, but your, salary and compensation just affects your life in general, your
Yeah.
personal life. It
Yeah.
can be really, you know, daunting every day. Like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? How am I going to pay my rent and stuff like that? That's just me being really
Yeah.
honest.
Exactly.
So if your job just can't give you that after a year or 2 years, then do you just stay? Like, what's the point in just staying? So I
Yeah.
fully agree with you. And I'm just curious if people are like listening or watching, and especially hiring managers, for example, and they think, oh, I normally like vet people out if they've like had
Yeah.
8 months experience, 10 months
Yeah.
experience, and not
Yeah.
the full year.
Yeah.
So why do you think there's like, maybe it's too much of a vague question, but why do you think there's like this big stigma around it?
Well, I had actually a couple of hiring managers sort of comment under my posts, or CEOs comment under my post, or like DM me about how it's not really a nice statement, or how they disagree with the statement. And I'm all for having a healthy conversation around, opinions and why I say what I say and so on. But I think that, especially coming from hiring managers, I was a hiring manager, and it can be very painful when you see a top performer, they're doing their work, they're the face of the department, they mentor and coach their coworkers, and it's like, okay, you've been doing everything, you've been ticking all the boxes. The only thing that we want to do right now is promote you, or the only thing we want to do right now is give you, a salary increase to recognize you for your work. And, the company might say, look, we've been struggling and we can't give you an increase right now, or there's no option to promote this person right now, no matter how hard they've been working. And as a hiring manager, or me as a former hiring manager, I can imagine, like, I was in those situations before, and it's tough because you have to say no to someone who really deserves it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
understand why the connotation, or like job hopping in itself, might have a negative like feeling around it, but oftentimes it's sort of the only thing that people can do, especially when you've been working so hard for the same company, like, every day, day in, day out, like you're working hard, bringing your everything,
Hmm.
and you're not getting rewarded. And that's something that, I feel like a lot of people are feeling right now, which is why
Yeah.
many people are leaving jobs right now.
Yeah. Or they're just scared of the current market, right? Like actually
Sure.
putting themselves out there, applying for
Yeah.
jobs again and being
Yeah.
rejected.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a big
That's,
fear
yeah,
at the
big
moment.
fear. Yeah.
Well, I was like totally agreeing with you because I had a similar situation very recently where I was the boss of my team and I
Yeah.
basically put their proposals in. And then because of the company performance, nobody could have a
Yeah.
raise.
That's,
And it is really heartbreaking, especially as a manager delivering these news and then
mm,
knowing in the back of your head they might leave and it's
yeah.
not their
Yeah.
fault, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it's a sort of a double-edged sword. Like, you as a hiring manager want to, promote your people, pay them more, make sure that they're happy 24/7. And unfortunately, that's not always the reality. It's not always possible, right?
yeah.
And I feel like that's the tough situation, or like the challenge as a hiring manager, to be able to understand the needs and the current situation of the business that you're in,
Yeah.
and at the same time translate that news or communicate that news to your team in the best and most transparent way possible. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that people might decide to leave. And that's, I think, the why, especially some hiring managers might be very opposed to like job hopping, because, yeah, they might realize, like, okay, we don't really want to promote job hopping. We really want to keep
Mm,
our people. But at the same time,
yeah.
they realize they can't always.
Yeah. And it's our jobs as recruiters, giving this information to hiring managers and checking applications and, candidates on LinkedIn, for example. It's our job to also get the explanation from an applicant why they have this experience or the
Yeah.
situations, because 9 times out of 10, people are very transparent. They maybe were laid off or, yeah, they couldn't have internal promotions at the
Yeah.
company. They had
Yeah.
to seek elsewhere. So people are very outspoken in interviews. They don't tend to bullshit or lie. So it's our job to actually educate hiring managers most of the time and just explain,
Yeah.
like, hey, they're not bad people. It's just bad circumstances
Yeah,
around them.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think that because of the layoffs, like, in the entire market, I think everyone's seen it. I think that makes it very hard, because people think I am not a job hopper, because they realize, or they think about the negative connotation,
Mm,
because they've been laid off multiple times. They might seem like a job hopper. And I always share with them, it's like, it's really about how you share your previous experience, like what has happened to you. If you can share that you've been laid off, then it would be a bit stupid for people to think you're a job hopper, right? Because it's not your
mm.
fault.
I've heard about some people that I have in my network and stuff who ask for, like, I'm sure you get this a lot as a career coach, right? You get a lot of people DMing you and asking you for help in interviews and stuff. I've
Yeah.
heard some stories about a person being laid off, for example, and then like being rejected because of that, because maybe they were not good enough for that position, hence they were laid off. So even that connotation around being laid off because you're a low performer, which
Yeah.
is most of the time not true, is normally due
No,
to the
no.
company's,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's so
financial.
painful.
Yeah.
So painful to hear, right? And I know it
Yeah.
happens. And unfortunately, I think that this is also, it's good that we're discussing it, because I think it's for, hiring managers, recruiters, also good to realize like how this might come across to the person interviewing with them, right? Because they have been laid off a couple of times. Their confidence might be
Mm,
completely gone, wiped away. And
yeah.
then you're literally rejecting them based on something that they didn't have in their control.
Yeah. I've also experienced it myself when I interviewed at a company. I'll
Okay.
keep this brief because I've said this story before on the podcast, but it was the only time I've experienced it actually. And I did 6 interviews, 2 were role play.
Oh, wow.
And in the end, I met it was like the MD. And basically, he made me write a letter explaining why I left every single job because I had
No
job
way.
hopped so much. And then they ended up rejecting me anyway after like 8 weeks worth of interviews. But that was refreshing because then I figured out like even though I'm in recruitment, like it can happen to you as well, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
having to navigate that, so not
Yeah.
being in this ivory tower and deciding as a recruiter like, oh, you shall pass and get this job and you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting being on the other side, so it humbled
Yeah.
me a bit actually.
I can imagine. But I
Yeah.
also feel like, and I mean, I'm not sure how that was for you back then. Like, how did you feel about that person sort of, having an opinion on your past or on your career?
Yeah, it was challenging. They basically said that they normally hire people that have a tenure of like 3 years within a company. And I was like, how does that make them a high performer or the
Exactly.
best in the biz, you know? Like
Yeah.
you're just judging me really harshly. After 6 interviews as well, god damn it. Like
Yeah.
it
That's,
was
wow.
yeah, I felt really shit. But then I thought,
Yeah.
do I want to work for a company like
That
that?
was my point. That was my point. Yeah. So that's a great point you're making, because I feel like people are, whether you're struggling for a job or you're not, or whether you're going through lots of interviews now or whether you're not, I think the main thing is have that story clear about like your own past and what has happened to you. I think that's the most important thing, because you never know in what kind of conversation you end up, whether it's a coffee
Yeah.
chat, whether it's an actual interview. But as long as you feel confident about your story, then that's the only thing that you can control, right? You can't control what other people have to say about you, what
Yeah.
their opinion is of you. And in my opinion, like I've had it happen where people were, judgy about me or my past experience, or were asking like tough questions about that. But
Mm.
again, as long as you feel good about it, that's the main thing. And if they decide that, you're not the person for the job, then maybe you're better off.
Absolutely. And hey, we're winning. Like we're better
Exactly.
off like
Yeah.
financially, and we're happier, more satisfied in our
Yeah,
job. So I don't see it as a bad thing at all.
exactly.
So I want to also talk about toxic work environments because I see you talking about this a lot on LinkedIn. So in your opinion, for those wondering and listening, like, do I work in a toxic work environment? Like, in your opinion, what does it look like, and how can people navigate around this or try and leave a
Yeah.
toxic environment?
Yeah, great question. There's lots of, different kinds of toxic environments, and it will look different for everyone. So I think that's the biggest sort of point here, because a lot of women that I speak with are like, I'm not really enjoying my job. And, you know, I hear stories about like, I was harassed, and I'm like, that's actually not just you're not enjoying your job. This is just like, you
Not
know
okay.
yeah, this is just not okay. and
Oh
and
my God.
sometimes, it's issues or things that you experience at work are very much internalized, and can be very tough to speak about those things, right? Whether you are being ghosted by your boss, whether they're shoving you aside, not giving you any attention, whether maybe people who've been working in the company for years get like a preferred treatment over new
Mm,
joiners. Again, it can take many shapes or forms, and I feel like it can be very tough to talk about, but it's important to talk about, because if you don't realize you're in a toxic environment and you stay in there, I've seen it happen that people actually get burnt out because of the environment that they're in.
yeah.
And it obviously doesn't start out like that. It starts with maybe a snarky comment here or there, or you seeing that your colleague, gets a preferred treatment over you, and you might think like, oh, that's a bit special. And
Mm,
but then weeks go by, months go by, and all of a sudden, your anxiety increases, you get frustrated, you're not sleeping, and then you might get burnt out, or depressed, or again, it can take many shapes or forms. But I would say reasons could be, again, toxic manager, they're simply just not giving you any attention. You might need help, but they keep canceling your one-on-ones.
I feel that. I have that. And
Yeah.
it makes you feel like it's your fault sometimes. Like, I'm too needy. I'm asking for too much. Like, they're
Yeah.
busy. That's like the main things that kept
I
running through my
know.
mind.
I know. It can be bullying. It can be, again, like you being, you not being welcome in certain meetings, the preferential treatment that I was talking about. So I would just recommend anyone who feels like they're in a situation where things don't feel right, or you might have like a gut feeling, to
Mm.
at least talk about it with someone else to understand, like, am I crazy? Like, is it just me, or is this really not okay?
Should you talk about it with team members or seek outside support like HR or a confidant, for example?
Yeah, great question. If you have a good relationship with your teammates, that could be a good starting point, because they might be in the same situation, or they
Yeah.
might understand what you're talking about. If that's not the case, I've also spoken to many women who felt like they were sort of the outsider. And then we're also talking sometimes, unfortunately, about discrimination. And in that case, you might feel like you're alone at work, right?
Mm.
Sort of like feel like an outcast. In that case, I would probably recommend to talk to friends, family,
Yeah.
anyone outside of work, but could also be, a therapist or a coach or a mentor, at least to start having that conversation, to feel like you're not alone. That
Yeah.
can already, feel like a weight's lifted off of your shoulders.
It's so unhealthy to keep it to
Yeah.
yourself and just blame yourself
Yeah. Yeah.
for
That
those
happens a lot.
things. I was just thinking back to one of my first work experiences as a recruiter.
Yeah.
And my boss was giving people, I was a team of 4 actually. And my boss was giving preferential treatment to the men, which was interesting. We noticed because there was 3 women in the team and 1 guy. And my boss actually received 3 bullying complaints, one from myself included. Sorry if you're watching and you know who you are, and 2 from other people actually. So it was all about the same thing, that she was quite aggressive and showing preferential treatment, etc. And the company decided to keep her because she was the highest performing salesperson
Yeah.
in the company, which I was just, it's shocking. You're like,
Yeah.
really? Like you
Yeah.
actually get complaints. People actually sit with HR and give a bullying complaint in
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
Traumatizing to live
Honestly,
through it.
chills, chills.
Yeah. And just to think about company performance like that, keeping a person like that in the company just because they're high performance affects the culture.
Yeah, it does
Yeah.
a lot. And I've heard that a lot, especially in the past, I would say couple of years. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of pressure on companies to perform,
Mm.
there's investors and so on. Like, those are all reasons why this situation might continue to happen, right? And I've seen it as well. It's like they're bringing in so much revenue for the company, or they're, such a good performer, and we can't sort of stand to lose this person, or we can't
Mm.
afford to lose this person. And then, what happens next is that people might actually leave because
Mm.
this behavior is tolerated.
Yeah.
And that's what can, make a company culture toxic.
And what they don't understand is maybe if that person was, there was a mediation meeting, for example, to understand why that person is acting that way, or if they removed that person,
Yeah.
that the culture would get better and people would actually feel
Yeah.
more comfortable to perform.
Yeah.
So overall, it would be a better solution. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
understand
agree.
this closed-mindedness.
I know.
Ah, it's so frustrating to see. And I see these kind of examples on LinkedIn as well. Just, of course, they don't name and shame the person, but I see
Yeah.
that bullying and harassment and stuff is still happening
It
in
is.
2024. It's crazy to think that.
It's crazy. Yeah, I've written a couple of posts about it. And I mean, the person that I'm talking about very well knows who they are. And I would never name and shame someone. But it's also like, I've had the conversations with HR, I've had conversations with colleagues, and I felt like I was one of the first people, maybe actually the first person to stand up against my toxic boss. And I felt hurt by HR, but no real action was being taken. It was really just allowed. And I felt that I was, my health was negatively impacted by this behavior. I wasn't sleeping, and, I had a lot of stress and anxiety. And of course, you're trying to look at yourself, like, what can
Mm.
I change? And I did. And, I had conversations with not just HR, with a coach as well to understand, like, okay, what can I do? But it does take two to tango.
Yeah.
And
You can change as much as possible, but if the person stays the same.
that's the thing. That's the thing. And, well, I'll save the whole story for another time. But, again, I tried everything I could. And I think that's also my advice for everyone else. Like, have the conversations, talk to HR, see if they will listen to you, talk to your friends, like to make sure that, yeah, you're right. It is a
Yeah.
toxic environment. And if you have the mental capacity to stay and at least, have an income while you're looking for another job, that's probably the best case scenario. But if
Yeah.
not, then sometimes it might mean that you have to quit, just for the sake of your own mental health and, to not get burnt out or, be out of the labor market for a while simply because you need to recover from that environment.
Yeah. I think one of your famous quotes that I'll never forget, I think I wrote it down somewhere actually, was quitting my job was an act of self-care and self-love,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
really hit deep. I think it's so important to be that vulnerable and open about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's funny because when I posted quite a bit on LinkedIn over the years, but I really started taking it more seriously back in September when I officially started my coaching business. And I was a bit scared to really put myself out there, but my aim is to positively impact, women's lives, women's careers, and obviously men will benefit from the learnings as well, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that the only way to do that is to be honest about my own experiences, because the only way that we can learn from what's happening in the world, the only way we can understand that what is happening to us right now might not be normal
Mm.
is when other people are open about their stories, because it might just mean that you think, hey, that has happened to me. Like, I'm reading this post from Jen and this is happening to me. And okay, this is not normal. Like, maybe
Yeah.
this is really toxic. And
Yeah.
that might just be the wake up call you need. So it was a bit frightening at first. And now I feel like I've had so many, people talk to me and say, like, whoa, I'm reading your posts and I feel like so bad that happened to you. And it's happened to me too.
Wow. So you're creating like a domino effect with people actually speaking up.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I can only help one person, that was always my aim. If I can only help one person by sharing my own stories, then that will make me feel good as well. Right. And I might
Yeah.
positively impact someone else's life. And
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like, same for you, sharing your story, like it inspires me. And I'm sure your listeners as well.
Yeah. It's just being, it's a big responsibility and role, right? To be a role model essentially and
Yeah.
being the first to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And,
Yeah.
some LinkedIn posts can come across as a bit too much or cringy, or you're kind of there
Yeah.
like, barf, that's a bit too much information.
Yeah.
But I love I think it's Monday quotes, right? Like, it's like every Monday or every Wednesday, I think. And I just see them pop up and I'm like, feels good to be a woman today. It feels empowering. So yeah,
Yeah.
give Jen a follow. We'll tell everyone about how to find you later on. But I want to talk more about your coaching. So can you tell us a bit more? Because it's tech career coaching, right? And you aim specifically to work with women, right? Because of the
Correct.
experiences that you've had and
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have been coaching women for years. I have to say people for years because I've coached lots of men as well. But I feel like because I have so many experiences, overcome so many challenges in tech myself, I am a very open person, very transparent. So when I speak to someone and, I might be able to help them sharing my own experience, I always will. And it meant that I actually had a lot of conversations around challenges that women are currently still facing. And I'm like, okay, if I have a bigger stage, if there's a different way that I can help women rather than just, us having a conversation in a bar or us
Mm.
as coworkers having a conversation, if I can do that on a bigger scale, then, it might actually impact many more people. So that's actually the reason why, again, I started my own career coaching business because I, feel very good about the career that I had. I was able to get promoted quite a few times. I made some really, really great steps in my own career. And they were always planned. And I feel like lots of people don't really think about career planning or how to take that next step, or if I want to become CEO of a tech company, like how do I actually get there? Like how do I break that bigger goal into smaller steps? And because I've helped so many women with those challenges, and I faced some of those challenges and overcome them myself. That was one of the main reasons why I thought, okay, women actually need quite some help. And then we haven't even talked about the general topics in tech being, the gender gap, gender pay gap, glass ceiling, and so on.
Did you give a talk about this recently?
I joined the D2 collective, my dear friends Erica and Nasty, last year in June I was a speaker for their event on the gender pay gap and salary negotiations.
Wow.
Super interesting. Like I can talk about these topics for days.
Did you get a lot of audience questions about it? And
Yeah. I feel like the main things are, salary negotiation in general. Like, how do I approach it if I want to negotiate my salary while I'm still on the job? But also, how do I make sure that I get a higher salary when I change jobs? And there are so many people who think, okay, I'm waiting until the offer stage and then I'll hear whatever they want to offer me. And then I might ask for a bit more and then they don't give it to me. And okay, I'm a bit disappointed, but I'll take the job anyway.
people being very passive instead of
passive.
taking the control.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just small things like discuss salary or ask for the salary range in the first screening conversation with a recruiter. That can already make such a difference, right? That can literally make or break the rest of your process. On the one hand, if you think, okay, the salary is not high enough for me, or I kind of feel like I'm worth more, that can also save you lots of time because you might say like, okay, this is not the job for me, and then focus your energy elsewhere.
Yeah. So you took the stage live in front of an actual audience and you take the stage on LinkedIn by sharing your experiences and your quotes and
yeah.
wow, very brave.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting, to be honest. I was never really a person of like taking a stage or presenting things, or I had never really done that before. But I'm very passionate about these topics. And if you have a story to share and if you're passionate about something, then it's always easier to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Don't have me talk about, I don't know, personal finance, because, I would probably be super nervous and like, not be able to talk about it at all. But again, if you're passionate about something, it makes it a lot easier to share.
It's a great thing you're doing for women out there, for the community
Thank
as well, and for
you.
people you're coaching. What's the biggest objections you get? So when you work with people one-on-one and they say, oh, I can't because of, do you get like a recurring theme with that?
Good question. I would say that, well, still, many people still rely on just applying for jobs online. So scrolling LinkedIn for hours. I mean, we've all been there, right? Let's be honest. But scrolling LinkedIn for hours, just clicking that apply button and then hoping to get like a reply. And I feel like that's really a mindset shift. Obviously, there have been people who've landed jobs that way, right? I'm not saying that it doesn't work at all, but because there are so many people looking for a job right now, it simply means that if you just click apply, you're one of, I don't know, sometimes 200-300 people. Like, how are you going to stand out? And, just by using your resume, because that's you're literally using your resume to do the talking for you. And people have such amazing stories to share, such amazing accomplishments, and the CV oftentimes doesn't bring across that story, in the best way.
Yeah, especially if you want to keep to one page, which is
Oh,
the worst advice I've ever
Worst
heard.
advice.
I don't know. I saw it the other day and I had to comment and I said, honestly, the sweet spot is like 2 to 5.
Yeah.
I will read it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend 3 seconds. I will read it. The most pages I've seen is 20.
Oh my gosh, really?
I
Wow.
didn't read it all. But I read like the most relevant stuff. But I was like, okay, dude, like 20. Come on, like But he also published books, etc. So he explained all his side projects. So you're totally right about getting so many applications in. I mean, I posted 2 jobs last week and I had like 120 applications in total for both.
Whoa.
Just for the Netherlands and people based here.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And I looked through all of them and they were all pretty good. So yes, I'm a recruiter. I look through every single one. I don't care
Love that.
where you come from, what your name is. Like, it's my job. This is what I get paid to do.
Yeah.
But I think what people don't realize is we don't just post and pray, I think the term is.
Yeah.
I also look outside. I want a bigger pool of people.
Thank you
We
for
want
mentioning that.
the best, right? So I go on LinkedIn, I go on Recruiter, and then I do the keyword search. And then again, depending, I think, on how active you are on LinkedIn, you do show higher up on the search too. So it also depends on how you display yourself. Like, what's your title? Like, can I quickly
Yeah.
see like you can do this job? And I've seen some people put like crazy job like
I
titles
know.
like guru
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
magician and wizard. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Are you a social media manager or what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing. So of course I'm gonna like skip it and just read someone else's because I just need clear information. Like, can you do the
Yeah.
job? Shall I contact you first?
Yeah.
So
That's great advice. I feel the same, and there's a lot of fancy job titles right now, like chief happiness officer.
what
And
does that even mean?
I don't
Is it
know.
HR?
I don't know
Uh,
actually.
chief happiness officer.
Officer? Yeah, I mean, and it sounds fun, right? Like it sounds like a fun job title, but if you're trying to change jobs right now, please don't. Because like you say, it's recruiters, hiring managers, like they need clarity. You need clarity around what do you do? Like what value
Mm,
do you bring? And like what is the job title that you're looking for? If people have to think twice or like really scroll through your LinkedIn profile to understand who you are and what value you bring to an organization,
yeah.
most of the times people just, close the window
Get
and are like,
bored.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too difficult to find it.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can't explain it yourself,
Yeah.
how am I meant to figure it out?
Yeah. What's wrong with just putting your regular job title on your LinkedIn profile?
There's nothing wrong with it. I think people
Exactly.
like perceive like personal branding as being like, oh, we have to stand out. I have
Yeah.
to start getting creative, but not,
Yeah.
please, not with job titles. Please. I
Yeah.
beg you to stop.
Yeah.
Like, just leave it and then get creative in your summary,
Yeah.
anywhere else
Yeah.
in the work experience, in the projects you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in your headline, you can definitely add some, interesting, like if you are very interested or very experienced in a certain field, like HR tech or fintech, like
Mm.
you can add more context there, but stick with the regular job title, because
Yeah.
again, that's what you're searching for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people don't see like the back end of LinkedIn, right? Recruiter, and what
True.
we actually
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
because otherwise we have to click in and like go through
Yeah.
every single page.
Yeah.
So I think the title is a maximum of 6 to 7 words that we see. And I remember one was like dad of 5 kids. And I was like, that's really nice. I love that for you. But like,
Yeah.
what do you do? Like for
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
can you do the job?
Yeah.
Like we could talk about that later.
Yeah.
But maybe putting that in the summary, or if you really
Exactly.
want that in, or
Yeah.
after. So normally I like to see a title. For example, if I saw your LinkedIn profile, I'd be like tech career coach, and then I help hundreds of people fulfill their
Yeah.
careers, etc. That's a better story than dad of 10 and engineer. And I'm like, engineer of what?
Yeah.
I just still don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, this is great advice. And people usually overcomplicate it because, as you mentioned, they think about personal brand. I have to stand out, all the bells and whistles. And that's usually not the case. I also say, even in resumes and LinkedIn profiles, just be clear, clear and concise. Of course, I agree with you. Like CVs, one page, that's really, bad advice. It's unnecessary.
yeah.
But in general, when you describe your experience or when you describe your job, just be clear and concise. Because again, when someone gets bored or checked out, they'll go on to the next person. So it just decreases your chance of, landing an interview or, landing a job ultimately.
Yeah. And that's not us just being horrible people. That's just the reality. It's just
Yeah.
recruiters are very busy. I don't think people
Very
understand.
busy. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're also doing projects like employer branding stuff, etc. Like I'm doing like a career site thing on the
Oh, I
side,
love
which
that.
is really technical and nothing.
Yeah.
Well, it relates to recruitment, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of user testing it, etc., which is
Yeah.
really freaking awesome. But
Yeah.
alongside hiring 15 people into the company at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So we are very busy and we're trying to find the best person as efficiently as we can. And
Yeah.
we're also really experienced. I think people need to realize that as well. Like we know how to
Yeah.
use Recruiter. It's just you need to put yourself out there a bit more and be very clear with your profile. Like let us find you.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, like make sure you use some of the keywords that you see in the job descriptions that you're trying to apply for. Make sure that you put your skills on your LinkedIn profile. And it's just, they're quite easy, easy things to do. But if you don't do it, like that makes that you won't be found as easy as other candidates.
Yeah.
And it's, a minor detail, like or it's a big detail, but it's like, minor work, I would say. Spend
Yeah.
like 10 to 20 minutes on your LinkedIn profile. And this is something that you can add within those 10 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. And you can just keep your profile for life. It's just like
Yeah.
you amend it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can use it and update it
Yeah.
forever. And
Yeah.
don't take this advice from me. Jen actually worked at LinkedIn.
I did.
So I think I've seen you post about this. Like you have some like behind the scenes kind of advice for job seekers to stand out a bit with their profiles, right?
I mean, you can go wild with the LinkedIn profile, right? And I would say for job seekers in general, just make sure to tick the boxes of the basics at least. So have a profile photo. And it's crazy that I still have to say this, but the amount of profiles that I see where there's just no photo.
It's so controversial because people say, oh, what if someone steals my identity and tries to be me and
really?
impersonate me? Yeah, I think
I've
that's the
never
main
heard that.
stigma. People trying to keep a low profile.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that it gives so much more context. And I mean, I was a recruiter in the past. I'm not sure how you view that now, but it gives so much more context. It shows the person behind the profile. And I don't mean as in, judging someone by their photo and then, using that as a deciding factor to invite someone for an interview or not. But a lot of times it can also mean, is this person even active on LinkedIn? If I reach out to them, are they going to respond to my message?
Yeah.
Or is this even a real profile?
Yeah.
Is this a bot or is this a person who spams other people?
Yes.
Because unfortunately there are still, those spammy profiles.
We get fake applications from
Exactly.
either like once I had a recruitment agency person apply for a job as like a ghost kind of candidate with no photo and stuff. Of course they were perfect. I got on the phone with them and they tried to like get the job from me as a client.
Oh no.
And I was like, this is the worst. So even that kind of stuff happens. So it's kind of clarifying you're a real person. I have hired someone without a picture. And when I met him, I was like, I don't want to say his name, but like, put a picture, you've got a lovely smile. Like I would have never judged you. And he said, yeah, I thought you would have judged me because of my age.
Ah,
and I was like, no, you've got a wonderful smile. And now he's got a photo and he looks great. And it's I don't want him to get like headhunted again because he's such a good person.
Take the photo down.
Yeah, take it down so no one hires you. But I mean, yeah, I've still hired people with no photo on their CV or LinkedIn and stuff.
Of course.
But it helps, like you said, build a picture. I hope other recruiters aren't ageist or judging people like based off anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just human interaction. Like I want to see that you're a real person. It's almost like dating, right? If a Hinge profile doesn't have a picture or an explanation, you're like, are they going to abduct me? And like, what's going to happen?
So true.
Yeah. So
true.
it's that kind of, I think we're just humans working with other humans. And it's just a bit normal. I don't want to say that. A bit standard.
Yeah.
Having a photo.
It's not just, you trying to get invited for an interview or you trying to get an in-mail from a recruiter. It's also if you are trying to network or are trying to make new connections on LinkedIn. I mean, honestly, like maybe not you as a recruiter, but if, me as a general person working at a random company, if I get messages from someone with, no information on their profile and no photo, while that person is trying to network with me, like I probably won't reply to their message. So again, this is just, if you are listening and you think about this, like very honestly, like, would you reply to that message? If you have no or hardly any context on your LinkedIn profile, no photo, would you really reply to that person if they ask you for, whether it's a conversation, whether they're asking you some questions about, hey, how do you like working at your employer or at your company?
Yeah.
Would you really reply if they don't have a photo or if there's barely any context on their LinkedIn profile?
The irony is that candidates or applicants snoop on like the interviewees and their future managers and colleagues.
Yeah.
And you look for pictures and complete profiles to, see like, oh, I want to see that person before I go to the interview. So I feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's the irony, which is funny. I think it also helps when you join a new company or for me, for networking events, I go through the list and I see the people. So I know who to, if I want to speak to a person from I don't know, Google or a
Yeah.
company I'm trying to target or whatever, I know who to look for in a venue, because otherwise I'm just going up to people like, are you Steve that
Yeah, yeah,
works from
yeah.
Google?
Oh,
Like,
that's hilarious. I can already see you do that. Like literally, you won't find the person. You won't.
no, especially if you are networking as a recruiter, for example. I think
Yeah.
that's also helpful. But I see job seekers now going to networking events a lot that I go to in Amsterdam, for example. I don't know if you've seen this too. Networking with other recruiters. So yeah, you want to see a picture of them and see, oh,
Yeah.
there's Shelley. I'm going to go find Shelley because she works at a recruitment agency and she has jobs for me. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just easy. Just put a picture
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Any other advice that I might
Yeah.
not know, maybe? Or
Well, I think you would probably know as a recruiter, and I think it's just not a lot of job seekers know this. Is to just put yourself open to work on LinkedIn.
the big debate because the Google recruiter was on the news.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Green
there's
banner.
yeah. There's two ways you can go about it, right? You can put yourself open to work for recruiters only, right? Without the green banner.
Yeah. So on the
So
yeah, I
yeah, so
understand.
if
Yeah.
you're a job seeker and you go into the whole like job seeking sort of side of LinkedIn, you will get prompts and you're able to actually put yourself forward as, hey, I am open to work, and share what kind of jobs you'd be open to. Are you open to relocating?
Hmm.
Maybe you are, and you're like, okay, I live in Amsterdam now, but I'm also open to work in London, Paris, or Dublin. You can add that context. You can add whether you want to work hybrid or remote. And this is all without the green banner. And you can
Yes.
choose to show this information to recruiters only. And then you will be able to find that as a recruiter in your
Yeah.
recruiter seat where you can search for candidates on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And green banner doesn't affect anything. I don't
It
care if
doesn't.
you've
No,
got
it
one.
doesn't. I mean, if you do want to use the green banner, I am like all for it. It's like if I was a recruiter and I see the green banner, I'm like, this person is available
Yeah.
now and they're looking for a job. It takes a lot of work away from me.
Yeah. It's fantastic, actually. It's
Yeah.
very visually appealing, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're scrolling through a lot of profiles and if you see purple, they're
Yeah.
hiring, and
Yeah.
green, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
they're open.
Yeah.
I don't see it as desperation at all,
No,
to be
I think
honest.
that person might have a problem with their own, might have happened to them,
I
being
think
called
so.
desperate or whatever. But no, it's,
Yeah, or maybe it's the culture there. They just think,
yeah.
oh, don't get desperate people into Google.
Gosh, I hope not, because
Just
that
get
would
high
be really
performers.
bad. Yeah. But I mean, again, if, it ties into the topic we were talking about earlier, if you get that kind of reaction from someone just because you have a green banner, it's like, do I even want to work for that company if that's how they feel about me? If they think I'm desperate for using a green banner on LinkedIn, is that the company that I want to work for?
Yeah, and there's many other things companies should be vetting out as
Yeah.
opposed to a green banner on a photo.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think about because they introduced the skills, right, that you can add into each job that
Yeah.
you have as well?
Yeah.
Do you think this is an important component for a profile as well to be
Yeah.
found?
Yeah, cuz it helps you add more context about what you did, and learned and so on in the job. And, you have like general skills you can add, but these are like very specific to the job. So if you don't scroll down on someone's profile, you'll still be able to see, okay, what are the skills, that they developed or have based on the job that they are currently working in.
Yeah.
And it can add a lot of context, but use them wisely. I see people adding 50
Oh, yeah.
similar skills on their profile, and I'm like, we get it. You're a team player.
Yeah. I saw someone put like stakeholder management and then managing partnerships, and I was like, I think that's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Also, I think a big faux pas. So just returning back to people putting themselves as like, how do we say it? Transparently open for work instead of like advertising it and putting the green banner and putting it on their titles. I think when people aren't clear on what they want, so they say like, I'm open for marketing manager,
Thank you.
salesperson, I get really confused and I'm like,
Yeah,
and then they put a different country, like
yeah,
completely. I'm like, do they wanna? So that makes me confused and it makes me not want to approach you because I'm like, am I
yeah,
wasting their time?
yeah.
Essentially.
No, I totally agree. One of the things that I share a lot on LinkedIn, I sometimes host webinars. I tell my clients this as well, is to be clear on what job that you're targeting. Because if you are not clear what job you're looking for, how can the recruiter or hiring manager really know like what to use you for, put you up for, like what job
Yeah.
might suit you? And especially when the titles are so different, like it's okay that you have very diverse work experience.
Yeah.
That's great. But at the same time, if you don't really know what you're looking for, it's going to be so much harder to land the job because recruiters might not reach out to you because they think you don't really know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it will be a lot harder for you to actually have a good LinkedIn profile or stand out on your LinkedIn profile and resume if you're literally mixing and matching job titles and, tasks and responsibilities. It can make it so hard for
Yeah.
yourself.
I think it's just so people can try and get a bit of anything.
Yeah.
Okay, if they don't get a marketing job, they'll settle for sales. It's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
that's not clear for us. It just makes it look like you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
And do we want someone like that in the
Yeah.
team?
Yeah, I know. A lot of times you end up with nothing, unfortunately, because you kind of fall in this sort of no man's land. The marketing team thinks you might want sales. Sales might think you are more into marketing, and then you end up with nothing.
Job purgatory.
Yeah, I know.
I wanted to talk about one more topic before we draw to an end. And it's something I believe you've mentioned as well, which I really want to discuss. It's
Yeah.
about burning bridges
Mm.
with ex employers or as you're exiting a job, because I also posted about, how to leave a job, etc. And I got so much heat about this, like, oh, but you don't know what I went through. And people
Oh,
got,
really?
people are projecting.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So you've spoken about this before. So I'm just curious from your perspective, like maybe if someone's listening to this and thinking, oh, I really want to leave a job, but I just, I'm emotional, like
Yeah.
I'm attached to the situation.
Sure.
How do I
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah.
Or
I've been in that same position, where I felt anxious and stressed and burnt out in my job. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. And again, whether you have a job or whether you want to take some time out, that's all fine. But the main thing is you never know when you will see or come across these people again, right?
it's the hard truth.
I mean, even the manager that you think is so toxic that you never would want to work with again, they might not even be your manager in a next company, but they might be your stakeholder, someone you have to work with on a daily basis, and you might not realize that at first, right?
Yeah.
So it's just very important in that way to think about how do you want to leave your job, because we all do have a choice. And sometimes, of course, mental health or the anxiety and stress can get the better of us. But
Mm.
if you are still in a position of making that decision for yourself, I would try and figure out a plan where you can at least, do your job until the end. Make
Mm.
sure that you do a good handover. Thank the people that did actually, mean something to you or that did actually help you out. And just make sure that you, again, leave on, I guess, terms as good as it gets,
Yeah,
right?
civil. You don't have to be
Civil.
best friends.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, if you do work with that person again, or you might end up in a job interview with them in the future, it has an impact. If you just left without, doing a proper handover or, left kicking and screaming and, oh
Mm.
my gosh, I've seen it before,
Yeah.
you don't want to work with that person again. So you
No.
immediately like that sticks with you.
I've had it where I managed a team and then one member, thank God, never happened again, left kicking and screaming. And I saw this person again at a networking event the other day,
Oh,
and they tried to say hello, and I'm like, do you think I want to talk to you? Like,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
crazy what you did. So like,
yeah,
doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, you leave a lasting impression. Like, it's a professional
100%.
environment. It doesn't matter if you want to like say fuck you to the company and do them dirty or
Yeah,
whatever. Like,
yeah.
the world is really small. I
It
think we
is.
forget this.
It is. And I think the what people forget is that it's not just, your manager or your direct team, but people will hear about this.
Yes.
And that opinion sticks with them. So say that didn't leave your company in the right way. And, 10 people around you might have sort of, felt like, okay, this was not okay. What you did. You left kicking and screaming. Those 10 people will move to maybe 10 different companies. So if you're trying to get a referral into those companies, while you left kicking and screaming or cursing at the manager, or can be anything. Do you think that you will get a referral there with those people, or not even with those people, but if, the manager of the team might ask like, "Hey, we have this person coming in. Do
Mm,
you know anything about them? I see that you're connected on LinkedIn. Like, have you worked with them before? Like, what's your
yeah.
opinion of the person?" That can really backfire on you.
Yeah. And we ask these questions.
You do. Yeah.
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 So, in one of the comments I received about this topic, someone
Yeah.
said, "But what about being yourself? I want to be myself at work. Like, and if someone pissed me off or made me sad or, laid me off and I'm annoyed about it, I want to let them know." So I was like, there's always time to talk about that,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
in a formal meeting, not in front of other people. You can also do it in a professional way.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like if you do have that opinion, or if you do really like, if you feel like there's no way that I can leave in a civil way, then just know that it might have repercussions and it might backfire, not just right away, but like at a later stage in your career. That big dream job that you've been eyeing, you're like, okay, I'm going to do so well there. Like, it's huge for my career, big pay increase. But if someone, who saw you doing your thing and like, being very annoyed and pissed off, if that person works in that company that you're trying to join,
Yeah.
they could block you from joining.
Yeah.
So just be aware that if you do want to leave kicking and screaming, just know that, it might backfire at some points.
All valid advice. Thank you so much for highlighting that and clarifying that as well. Jenny or Jenny. Why have I got Jenny in my head?
All good.
Jen, so if I want to reach out to you, if I want some tech career advice from yourself, or I just want to read one of your beautiful quotes on a Monday and Wednesday
Love it.
on LinkedIn, how can I reach out to you?
Yeah, like I would say reach out to me on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn. I love having conversations, discussions around any of these topics about career progression, how to land interviews, and so on. So you might get inspired by some of my posts. Feel free to react to them and bring and start up the conversation. And yeah, you can just reach out to me via message on LinkedIn if you have any questions you want to discuss in private with me as well.
Perfect. Jen, it's been really eye-opening and it's been amazing to have you on
It was
finally.
so
Thank you so
good.
much
Yeah.
for coming
Thank
on.
you, Daisy. Thanks for the invites.